Philip Stoughton from My House to Yours. Welcome to EMS at Sea Level. Today I'm joined by Jason Azevedo. Jason, thanks very much for taking the time out to chat to me. I was reading your profile and listening to a couple of podcasts you'd already appeared on, and I was really intrigued with the fact that you started very young and you started pretty much on the first day of the last huge economic downturn at the start of the global financial crisis. And I think of you as being forged in a time of disruption, and I feel that we're in ongoing disruption at the moment. So talk to me a bit about that early part of your career and what led you into the manufacturing industry.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of set the story on this one. I was 15 years old. We started, my brother and I started our first manufacturing company in February of 2007. So right as we get going and things get moving, we start seeing what's going to happen in late 2007, early 2008. This is right as we're believing we have a business and that things are going to go. All of a sudden, all the markets fall out. And I remember very distinctly talking to a bunch of people. They're all telling us, "Oh, this is a horrible idea. It's a bad time to start a business. Don't get involved in anything." And I really started to believe them. And what we didn't realize at the time is every person who's telling us not to do it had never actually done it themselves. So they started imposing their beliefs on us, and we started to believe it until one person, frankly, messed up. They turned to us and go, "You're going to lose everything you have." I'm 15 years old at the time. I'm still living with my mother and father.
That's not so much.
What is everything? And it snapped us out of that. And we started to realize that everyone else had their set of fears. And if we just went into industry and looked at it different, we could find gaps and holes in how to develop. So what we started changing our mindset, and you hit it on the head, that right now is a very similar time. We started realizing that equipment was now half price, pennies on the dollar, because people are going bankrupt. So here are these young kids that can actually afford to go buy some equipment. In addition to that, a lot of major companies start going bankrupt because of cash flow, not because of profitability.
Yeah.
And we start realizing, well, they still have customers that need to be serviced. Customers that we never would have had any chance of getting into in a normal market. So what we would basically do is keep track of who's going out of business, where are things getting tight. And we developed processes and some of the most complex at the time was printing that we could get ourselves into, so that we were there to service these clients as they fell out of a company that they maybe had been working with for 20 years. Yeah. So really looking at, okay, everybody's getting dealt the same hand of cards. So to sit there and go, "Oh, it's all over," that's just not a good idea. There's going to be winners and there's going to be people that come out of this. So we try to look at it very differently. How can you take whatever hand of cards you have in your hand dealt to you? How can you make those work the best? And that ends up being very important to how we even look at acquisitions nowadays. Is what are the industries that are going to be strong? Where can we add a ton of value? Where can we modernize? And that's really kind of the focus of it. But we were forged in fire. You at 15 years old, when you're sitting there going, "I don't even know how to run a business, much less one of the worst economies in American history."
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you were in the outsourced industry, you're still in the outsourced manufacturing industry now, and it's on those ramps that markets change. When the market's either going up rapidly or it's going down, people are looking to shift. And traditionally we've seen in the past, when the market is shifting, people do shift their insourcing to outsourcing, and models change. And I do feel, as we've gone through the trade wars with China, we've then gone through the pandemic, over the last 12 months, we've been bogged down with supply chain problems and component shortages. We're now looking at stormy financial waters on the horizon. We're coming to this position where you really do need to design your business for disruption and design it for the next disruption, and you've no idea what it is. Has that always been your strategy since that 15-year-old started the business, or is that something that you've realized is important in the last few years?
So, like any strategy, it develops over time. But one of our biggest things always has been, how much can I do for my client? Because the reality, especially as products reshore or we go through really hard economic times, every customer wants as little supply chain management as they can possibly get. So if I can come in and do your wire harness and your dashboard and have it all in a package ready to go straight to a factory floor, I am drastically more valuable because I'm saving you headache and energy and time. And that has always been our focus. How can you really bring as much to the customer complete as possible and do as much of it internally within your organizations so that you're taking pain off of them? Because you become a very, very important supplier when they are cutting one invoice with one set of drawings or prints, and you're just taking a ton of their front of house work off of them. Yeah, that's really been the focus for years.
Yeah, so you add the value by being that outsource partner that really understands their business and is prepared to vertically integrate to service that business. And yeah, I can see that delivers a lot of extra value. And you talked in that answer about whilst people are reshoring. Let's talk a little bit about that trend. How much reshoring are you seeing? How is that affecting your strategy and the way you grow and develop your business?
We are seeing drastic amounts of reshoring. Actually, the biggest limitation to reshoring is lack of places to send the work. It's that I don't talk to very many manufacturers right now that aren't backed up for a year, 2 years, that they are trying to figure out how to keep up with the demand. It's twofold. Some of it's a lot of it is reshoring. Clients, especially after trade wars and pandemics where travel got harder, they're trying to bring it back, and just for ease and for functionality. But the other side of it too is it's fiscally becoming appropriate. So what's really in the manufacturing space specifically that's changed a lot in the last 10, 15 years, technology has just drastically changed how labor works as an input. And frankly, if you look at the history of US manufacturing, the only time things started being outsourced was when it was a labor man-hour to man-hour competition.
Yeah.
If you can back up people with machinery and process, now it's not a one-to-one labor argument. And now you've got a ton of positives on fiscal positives for producing in the US.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's key. I think when I look at the US's competitiveness, it did go through this cycle of jobs being outsourced to Asia. And that was purely based on labor rates, pressure from Wall Street, wherever to reduce the cost of manufacturing. And now two things have happened. It's become more expensive to manufacture in Asia. I think there's awareness of, when you look at the price, factory gate price, that isn't the total cost of ownership when stuff's landed here. And as you say, all that travel grief has made people aware of the costs of outsourcing places that are a great distance away and how challenging that can be. But we've also got these issues around supply chain risk at the moment and how robust the supply chain is and the importance of manufacturing to the US. So we fast forward 15 years from when you were 15. So I'm guessing you're twice the man you were, twice the age you were now. What's your business doing now? It's more of a conglomerate of manufacturing companies? Is that how you're developing it?
So functionally, we are a private equity firm, but we're manufacturers at heart that use private equity as a model to allow people to invest with us, but also to go purchase companies. Our focus is legacy US manufacturing companies, usually going to be second, third generation companies that don't necessarily have a succession plan in place right now. And we come in, provide a protection of the company and the legacy of it, where a lot of conglomerates you're going to see come in, they're going to kind of strip mine companies, roll them up and push out. We don't believe that that model's healthy nor necessary. We've come up with a way to buy these companies and protect the legacy and the local community that they're in. Because for a lot of these companies, they are a major part of that local community and actually make a portion of the population because they're so impactful to them. So what we've learned and we've seen is that to the owners selling, that is very important to them also. So our model works by, we buy these companies, we do conglomerate them by sharing secrets and customers and all these other strategic standpoints. And then we're actually going to exit through an employee stock ownership program. So we will double down on, frankly, transferring 100% of the ownership to the employees, therefore truly protecting that local community and that local legacy. And because it'll be owned by the people who are in it.
Yeah, that's a really nice model. That's, you know, it's a practical and pragmatic model, but it delivers real value to those businesses and as you say, to the communities. And I think as we move from a shareholder to a stakeholder approach to business, I think that's hugely valuable. Just give me an idea in terms of ballpark as to how many companies, how many employees are in the group as it stands at the moment.
So we're currently at approximately, I believe it's 100 employees across 4 plants right now. Yeah. That being said, that will be changing quite a bit over the course of the rest of 21 or the rest of 22 and 23. We've got an acquisition target of hitting about 1,100 employees by mid 23. Okay.
Yeah. So rapidly growing. And you mentioned before that the labor element with respect to changing with regard to automation is a key part of it. Talk to me a bit about that. How do you view automation as kind of collaborative with the workforce within the companies you're working with?
So automation at the rate that we are consuming nowadays is an absolute must. If you take, say, your razor, and you go back 10 years ago, someone would make it 30, 60, 90 days with the same razor. Now I've got friends who use a different razor every single week. Yeah. So just to keep, but you still have the same workforce to make these products. So just to keep up with current consumption, automation is a required tool to make workers more effective. What we try to make sure we focus on if we're adding automation or process, use humans for what they're innately special at. And that's problem solving and thinking. Don't use them at sheer labor that's hard on their bodies and grueling work. And if you can do that, and that's why we always double back to revitalization of a manufacturing plant. We've never gone into a plant that we didn't increase the workforce, but we're also increasing their ability to succeed by giving new tools and processes to the people. That I grew up in a factory home where my father worked graveyard for 28, 29 years. And he would come home tired and exhausted. And that doesn't have to be the case anymore. We've got the tools in place. And a lot of these tools in the last 5 to 6 years have just drastically changed. Now with like cobots and other things that are coming online, you can actually collaborate with a robot sitting next to you, and it's not a dangerous situation. So really it's a focus on how do you get humans to do the thing that they are extraordinarily special at, which is their problem solving and thoughts.
Yeah, and you know, when you look at automation and how advanced automation has to be just to pick up the simplest task that we do as second nature, you realize how freaking awesome humans are.
Oh yeah.
And how incredibly capable they are. But if you can take away the dull, the dirty, and the dangerous jobs from them, then you know, I think automation plays a role. And as you say, automation's changed. It's become much more flexible and much more adaptable. And there are different business models like automation as a service and stuff like that that's aiding that process. So where do you see the future of manufacturing in the United States? I mean, I look at a situation where jobs did shift overseas, and as a result, there was a little bit of a lag in the amount of investment that went into those legacy firms that you talk about in the US. There's an opportunity now, without doubt, with reshoring, with more regionalization of the supply chain. Where do you see the big future opportunities?
I see a huge growth coming to the manufacturing industry. One of the things that we are trying to do from our side is buy legacy companies and revitalize them to match the modern market for them. Mm-hmm. But you're also going to see a lot of new plants coming online and new growth, because they take Tesla. When they launched their plant, they tried to automate absolutely everything, and the reality was they actually removed half of the automation because they're like, you know what, maybe let's just keep humans and keep growing with that. So you're going to see a lot of growth in how do people interact with the new situations that they're going with. And once you start seeing that, what's going to be incredibly important is changing of stigmas. So for the last 25 years, parents have stopped telling their children to go get factory jobs, to go work in manufacturing. So what has that created? A huge hole in the market. And we need to start changing that. And the way we change that is by making sure the employees are very well taken care of, and that they're very healthy and they're very safe and they're fulfilled when they leave the building. But truly, it's hard to find another industry that with no education, they will train virtually the entire industry will train you on site to do things like robotics or run multi-million-dollar machines and let you continue to grow as high as you could possibly want in the organization. There's not a lot of
well-paid jobs,
and they're very well-paid jobs. They're becoming. If you take like Tesla's new factory, it's brightly lit and white floors. And I mean, this isn't Charles Dickens dirt floor, but people still have that stigma stuck. So that's going to be a huge turning point, is changing the perception so that we can get more and more people coming back into the industry. And that's a huge chunk of it, is just changing perception, because the times have changed. People's mindsets haven't necessarily.
Yeah, and I think what you're offering, Jason, is really interesting with that route to ownership as well. I think that's really exciting, and that's going to attract more and more talent into the industry as well. And that's, you know, kind of fulfilling the American dream. So I think that's hugely important. Jason, an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I love your enthusiasm. I'm glad it's going the direction it's going for you and for the US manufacturing economy. And I hope we can talk again soon. Thank you.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.